I dropped my brother's laptop off at a repair shop on a Tuesday afternoon because he asked me to and because that's what I do. I help. That's always been my thing. The helpful one, the reliable one, the one who picks up the phone on the first ring. I didn't think twice about it. His screen had been flickering for weeks, he said, and he was too busy to take it in himself. He worked long hours. He always had an excuse. I understand that now in a way I didn't then. The shop was a small place on the corner of Alderton and Fifth, the kind with a handwritten sign in the window and a little bell above the door. The man behind the counter was maybe 50, glasses, quiet. He told me to come back Thursday. I came back Thursday. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me, then at the laptop, then back at me. He typed something, clicked something, turned the screen around slowly, like he was being careful about it. "Is this your laptop?" he asked. "My brother's," I said. "I brought it in for him." He nodded once, slowly. Then he said, "You might want to sit down. My name is Ren. I'm 31 years old. I'm a licensed occupational therapist. I work with elderly patients at a rehabilitation center, and for the past 2 years I've been the primary caregiver for my father, who was diagnosed with early-stage vascular dementia in the spring of the year before last. My brother's name is Felix. He's 36. He lives 20 minutes from my father's house, same as me. He visits maybe once a month, sometimes less. He always has a reason: work, traffic. His girlfriend needed something. I stopped keeping track of the reasons a long time ago because it wasn't doing either of us any good. What I want you to understand, what matters for all of this, is that I never blamed Felix for not showing up more. Caregiving is hard. Not everyone is built for it. I knew that going in, and I accepted it. I genuinely did not resent him for the imbalance. My father needed someone. I was able to be that someone, and I told myself that was enough. That was my first mistake. Not the caregiving, the not resenting him. Because while I was busy not resenting Felix, Felix was busy doing something else entirely. The man at the repair shop, his name was Eddie, I found out later, pulled up a folder on my brother's laptop. Inside that folder were documents. Not a few. Dozens. Bank statements. My father's bank statements. Going back 14 months. There were wire transfers. Small at first. 200 here, 400 there. The kind of amounts that might not raise a flag if you weren't looking for them. But they escalated. In the last 3 months alone, my father's savings account had been drained of over $40,000. I almost didn't say anything, Eddie told me. It's not my business, usually. But I have a father with dementia too, so. He handed me a printout. I held it in both hands and I read it twice, and I still didn't quite believe what I was looking at. The transfers went to an account I didn't recognize, but there was a name attached. A name I recognized very well. Felix Arthur Holloway. My brother. I sat in my car in the parking lot for a long time after that. The thing about finding out someone you love has been stealing from your family is that your first instinct, at least mine, is to assume you're wrong, to give the benefit of the doubt, to think there must be an explanation. Dad authorized this? Maybe. It was a loan. Felix was holding it for him. Something. I called my father that afternoon. He was in good spirits, lucid, told me about a show he'd been watching. I asked him, as casually as I could, whether he'd been moving any money around lately. He laughed a little. Said he didn't think so. Said he'd have to check. He said Felix had been helping him with some paperwork recently and that had been nice. What kind of paperwork? I asked. Oh, I don't know, my dad said. Legal stuff. Felix said it was just keeping things organized. I told him that sounded good. I kept my voice even. I said I'd come by Sunday for dinner. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and I opened my laptop and I started looking into exactly what keeping things organized meant. It took me 2 evenings and the help of a friend who works in financial compliance. Her name is Audra. She went to school with me. She is one of the sharpest people I have ever met. To understand what I was looking at. Felix had obtained a durable power of attorney for my father. That document gave him the legal authority to manage my father's finances. make decisions on his behalf, act as his representative in legal and financial matters. The problem was, I had been with my father at every single doctor's appointment for the past 2 years. I was listed as his emergency contact. I was the one who managed his medication calendar, who drove him to his neurologist, who sat with him during his cognitive assessments. No attorney had ever contacted me. No notary. No one. Audra looked at the document I'd found scanned in that folder and she was quiet for a long moment. "Ren," she said, "your father's signature is on this, but look at the date." I looked at the date. It was a Wednesday in November, 14 months ago. I remembered that Wednesday. My father had had a bad week, confused, disoriented, more so than usual. I had actually called his neurologist to ask whether we needed to adjust something. He had not been in a state to sign anything that week. I would have staked anything on that. Someone else signed for him, Audra said quietly, or he was guided. Either way, this is forged or coerced, and either one is a crime. I want to tell you what I didn't do because it matters. I did not call Felix. Not that night, not the next morning, not when every single part of me wanted to pick up the phone and scream at him. I did not show up at my father's house and try to explain what was happening, which would have confused and frightened him. I did not post anything, say anything to mutual family members, not a word. What I did was write everything down. Every date, every amount, every document reference. I took photographs of the printouts Eddie had given me. I backed everything up to 3 different places. And then I called an elder law attorney. Her name is Ms. Figueroa, and she was recommended to me by Audra, and I made an appointment for the following Monday. Ms. Figueroa had been practicing for over 20 years. She looked at everything I brought her, asked me several pointed questions, and told me that what I was describing was elder financial abuse, and that we had a solid foundation to move forward, both to revoke the fraudulent power of attorney and to pursue recovery of the stolen funds. She also told me something I hadn't considered. "Your brother may have already taken steps to transfer property," she said. "We need to check your father's real estate holdings immediately." My father owns a house. He has lived in it for 34 years. It's the house I grew up in. The house where my mother died when I was 19. It is worth conservatively $480,000 in the current market. I went to the county assessor's website that same evening. The deed had been updated 6 weeks prior. My father's name was still on it, but a joint ownership clause had been added. Felix Arthur Holloway was now listed as co-owner. I had to close my laptop and go stand outside for a while after that. It was cold. I didn't care. When I came back inside, I sat down and I kept going. There's a particular kind of grief in discovering that someone who shared your childhood, who sat across from you at the same dinner table, who you defended in schoolyard arguments, who you called when your own heart was breaking, has been systematically dismantling your family's security while you were looking the other way. It doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in waves. You feel furious, and then you feel sad, and then you feel foolish for having trusted, and then you feel angry at yourself for feeling foolish, because you know that's not fair. You are not naive. You are just a person who believed that blood meant something. I cried once. The night I found out about the house deed. I sat in my bathroom on the edge of the tub and I cried for about 10 minutes, and then I washed my face and I made a list of everything I still needed to do. That's what I mean when I say I kept going. The following week, I contacted Adult Protective Services. I filed a report. The caseworker who called me back, she was professional, methodical, thorough, told me I had done the right thing coming forward and that they would be opening an investigation. I also contacted my father's bank directly. With Ms. Figueroa's help, I submitted documentation challenging the legitimacy of the transfers and flagging the power of attorney as potentially fraudulent. The bank's fraud department opened their own review, and I changed my father's contact information, gently, carefully, with his knowledge and participation on one of his clearer days, so that all future correspondence from financial institutions, his insurance provider, and his doctor's office would come to me directly. He didn't fully understand all of it, but I explained simply that I wanted to make sure he was protected and that no one could make decisions for him without him knowing about it. He nodded and squeezed my hand. "I trust you, Ren," he said. That almost broke me more than any of the rest of it. Felix called me about 3 weeks into all of this. I let it go to voicemail. His message was casual. Breezy even. He asked if I'd been by to see Dad lately. Said he'd been meaning to get over there. Mentioned something about a work trip coming up. Nothing in his voice suggested he knew anything was wrong. Either he didn't know I'd found out or he was a better actor than I ever gave him credit for. I didn't return the call. Miss Kantz, Figueroa had advised me not to have any direct conversations with Felix about any of this until we were further along. Document, don't confront, was how she put it. Those 3 words became my daily mantra for the next 2 months. I kept showing up at my father's house. I kept taking him to his appointments. I kept making Sunday dinners and watching his shows with him and listening to his stories, even the ones he told me before, even the ones I could recite by heart. Meanwhile, the paper trail was building. Audra found something I had missed. She was looking at the scanned documents from Felix's laptop. I had sent her copies, and she noticed something about the notary stamp on the power of attorney. The notary commission number didn't match any active commission in our state. Either the notary didn't exist, or the stamp had been fabricated. Either way, the document was invalid on its face, which meant every financial action taken under its authority was also invalid. When Ms. Figueroa received that information, she called me within the hour. This changes things considerably, she said. We're not just looking at financial abuse, we're looking at fraud, document forgery, and depending on how the DA's office wants to approach it, potentially elder exploitation under state criminal statute. She paused. How do you want to handle this? I told her I wanted my father's money back. I wanted his house secured, and I wanted Felix to be held accountable, not because I hated him, but because if no one held him accountable, he would do this to someone else. She said that was a reasonable and achievable set of goals. The civil case was filed first. Ms. Figueroa moved to have the fraudulent power of attorney revoked and the joint deed amendment invalidated. Felix was served at his home on a Thursday morning. He called me 4 times that day. I let all 4 go to voicemail. His messages went from confused to defensive to, by the 4th one, something that almost sounded like an explanation. He said Dad had offered. He said he was just trying to protect the family assets. He said I didn't understand the whole picture. He didn't apologize once. Not in any of the 4 messages. Not once. I saved all of them and sent the recordings to Ms. Figueroa. The hearing was on a gray Tuesday in February. My father did not attend. His neurologist had written a letter explaining why it would be inadvisable, and the court accepted that. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Ms. Figueroa and I did not look at my brother more than I had to. Felix had hired his own attorney, a man who spoke loudly and moved a lot. He argued that the power of attorney was legitimate, that my father had been in full capacity when he signed it, that the financial transfers were gifts made freely by a man who had the legal right to give his money to his son. Ms. Figueroa presented the notary commission discrepancy, the bank's fraud review findings, my father's medical records from the week the document was purportedly signed, documenting his significantly diminished cognitive state, the testimony of my father's neurologist, 14 months of financial records showing a pattern of escalating transfers immediately following the document's execution. The judge was a woman in her 60s. She listened to everything without expression. Then she ruled. The power of attorney was declared void. The joint deed amendment was invalidated. The court ordered Felix to provide a full accounting of all funds transferred and to make restitution. The case was referred to the DA's office for criminal review. Felix sat very still when she finished reading. I didn't feel triumphant. I want to be honest about that. I felt exhausted and sad and relieved all at the same time, in a combination that doesn't have a clean name. The DA's office accepted the referral. As of the time I'm telling you this, Felix is facing criminal charges for elder financial abuse and document fraud. The case is ongoing and I won't go into details about the current status, but I will say that the restitution process has begun and my father's accounts have been frozen against further unauthorized access. My father knows now, in broad strokes, what happened. I told him carefully, on one of his good days, with his regular caregiver present. He was quiet for a long time afterward. Then he said, "I should have paid more attention." I told him that wasn't his fault. That people who do things like this are careful about who they target and when. That his trust wasn't the problem. Felix's choices were the problem. He nodded. He looked out the window for a while. "I'm glad you found it," he finally said. "I'm glad it was you. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this, because I've thought about it a lot, and I think it matters." The first thing I did after leaving Eddie's shop, before anything else, was contact my father's insurance provider and update the beneficiary designations on his life insurance policy. That was the first call I made from my car in that parking lot, because whoever controls the paperwork controls everything, and the paperwork had already been touched. If you have a parent or a grandparent or anyone you love who is aging, who has a cognitive condition, who is being helped by a family member you don't have full visibility into, please listen to me. Check the accounts. Check the deeds. Check the beneficiary designations. Check the power of attorney documents and verify the notary credentials yourself, because that takes 5 minutes and it could save everything. You do not have to be suspicious of everyone. You just have to be paying attention. That's all. Just paying attention. And if someone you trust hands you their laptop and asks you to drop it off for a repair, and a man behind a counter turns the screen around and looks at you with that particular expression, don't assume you're wrong about what you're seeing. Sometimes the truth is sitting right there in a folder you weren't supposed to find. The bell above the door chimed when I left Eddie's shop that Thursday. I stood on the sidewalk in the afternoon light with a printout in my hand and a feeling I couldn't name yet, looking at my brother's name in black and white. I folded the paper. I put it in my bag. I got in my car. And I got to work. I thought a lot about what made any of this possible, not just what Felix did, but what allowed it to go on for 14 months without anyone catching it. And the honest answer is that I stopped paying attention, not because I didn't care, because I cared so much about one thing: showing up for my father every day, being the reliable one, keeping his world steady, that I let everything around that become invisible. I trusted the shape of my family without looking at what was actually inside it. That's not a character flaw. It's just what happens when you're stretched thin and you're exhausted and you believe at some level that the people who grew up beside you share your values because they shared your childhood. They don't always. And the painful truth is that the people who know us best also know exactly where we aren't looking. Felix knew I was at my father's house every Sunday. He knew I handled the medical side of things. He knew I was the one fielding the hard calls and the hard days. And he built his plan in the space I wasn't watching: the financial side, the paperwork, the quiet transfers that happened on weekday mornings when I was at work. And my father was alone. What I learned from all of this, what I carry with me now, is that caring for someone is not only emotional, it's structural. It means understanding how their money moves, who has authority over their decisions, whose name is on the documents. Those aren't cold things. Those are the architecture of protection. And if you leave that architecture unexamined because it feels unloving to be suspicious, you are not protecting anyone. You are just hoping. I don't believe hope is enough anymore. I believe in verification. I believe in the 5 minutes it takes to look up a notary commission number, in the phone call to the bank you keep putting off, in the conversation with your parent on a clear day about who has access to what. I believe in those things because I have seen what happens in their absence. And I believe in something else too, that the choices we make accumulate. Felix made dozens of small decisions over 14 months, each one a little worse than the last, each one a little easier because the previous one had gone undetected. That's how it works. Not one big dramatic moment of corruption, but a slow drift, one quiet step at a time, until you are somewhere you could not have imagined standing at the beginning. The same is true in the other direction. I made dozens of small decisions too, to write everything down, to not make the call I wanted to make, to sit with what I was feeling and keep moving anyway. None of those decisions felt significant in the moment. Together, they were everything. My father told me he was glad it was me who found it. I think about that a lot. I didn't find it because I'm smarter than Felix or braver or more virtuous. I found it because a quiet man named Eddie turned a screen around and trusted his instinct to say something, and I was paying enough attention in that moment to listen. Pay attention. Verify the things that matter. And when someone shows you something you weren't supposed to see, don't look away.